The following program is brought to you by the National Foundation for Artistry, a publicly funded private corporation, because we know what art is, and you don't.
Good evening. I am Margot Saint-Jean-Fachon, and tonight we will examine the Shakespeare mystery. Who was Shakespeare? The writer of the plays was certainly the greatest dramatist the English language has ever known. But was he also William Shakespeare, Esquire of Stratford-on-Avon? Was the poet of soaring imagination also the grubby dealer in real estate? Was the sublime dramatist the sort of man who would leave behind no books, no papers, and an illiterate wife and daughter? Was the creator of Lear and Hamlet, Caliban and Mercutio, the fat-faced bourgeois non-entity of the memorial bust? Who do you think you are, and how did you get in here?
Who do you think you are, running down my looks?
You haven't answered my question, you grubby little man.
Oh, well, I'm William Shakespeare, you know, the fat-faced bourgeois non-entity himself.
You're dead!
I won't deny it. So?
Preposterous. You don't even look like Shakespeare.
You mean that woodcut in the first folio? They didn't make that thing till I'd been dead a couple of years, and I was outraged. I wasn't losing my hair nearly that badly.
Assuming you are Shakespeare, the Stratford-on-Avon Shakespeare, and that you claim to have written the plays, maybe you can answer a few questions for us.
Well, this isn't exactly a gig on The View, but I guess I need to stand up for my reputation. Ask away.
Thank you. First off, how could a man with no schooling write so convincingly of foreign lands, court intrigue, and war?
No schooling? You obviously don't appreciate the power of homeschooling. My mother taught me a lot. Many was the afternoon I sat in the warm, comfy muck of our kitchen, nourishing my young mind while my mother did her chores. Ma, where's Italy?
Ask your father!
Ow! Ma, what does jus sanguinis mean?
It means, have you finished mucking out the privy yet?
Ow! Ma, what's a bare bodkin?
It means I'm going to wash your mouth out with lye soap if you ask another question.
Ow! Ma?
What?
Nothing.
I see you learned many lessons at your mother's knee.
Yeah, mainly I learned to keep my mouth shut and keep reading. And I did have some formal schooling. My dad sent me to the local grammar school for 2 years. I learned all sorts of interesting things, like how they had clocks in Julius Caesar's time. I flunked geography, though. I thought Scotland was next to Italy.
You'd have fit right in at a modern American school.
I got on better, though. Years later, I made Montague an Italian name in one of my plays. I don't remember which one.
And they kicked you out of this geographical legerdemain?
No. Dad just couldn't afford to keep sending me. Dad, he was a glove maker, you know. I've still got one of his gloves as a keepsake, see?
Pity gorillas hadn't been discovered. Shall we leave these golden childhood memories behind?
Well, if you like. After I grew up, I got married. I got her back, too. In my will, I gave her my second best bed.
Typical. You always gave me your second best in bed, too.
Oh, can we get off the former Mistress Hathaway?
Get off? You hardly ever got on.
In the words of the immortal Coriolanus,
Highly enlightening. And then?
Then I went up to London. Theatre was hot as beard oil right then, and I was convinced I could make my mark in the world as an actor. I met Richard Burbage at a tavern. Actually, it was under a table at a tavern, but it was a very good tavern, mind you, and I had a foot in the door.
In point of fact, you were never a featured player. There is no documentation to support your ever having gotten your name on a playbill. You hung around the fringes of the theatrical world for a few years, then came back to Stratford with nothing to show for it.
Nothing to show? Nothing to show? I came back knowing acting, knowing stage management, knowing production. I came back knowing how to write plays.
I fail to see.
This always kills me when some academic snot says I can't have written plays about war or politics without having been a soldier or a courtier. I had to know about plays before I could write bugger all about anything.
The court politics.
Look, theatre then was like theatre now, and some of the boys had friends at court.
Boys? I fail to see.
The boys in the band, or the theatrical troupe in this case. Look, you can't be a macho general or chief justice and hang out around the docks trolling for sailors, can you? But you can be a patron of the arch and hang out around the theatre.
Oh.
Odzooks, the gossip I heard. I knew about who was doing what to whom and why than Queen Elizabeth did. And I made contacts too.
Wasn't that dangerous before antibiotics?
Not that kind of contacts. You don't have to play hockey to know what the puck is going on.
So you were...
No.
Hey, why don't you ask me?
You keep out of this.
All of those friends of his who dressed up like women.
And I keep telling you, it was a convention of Elizabethan theatre. Men played all the parts.
I'll say they played all the parts. Want me to tell you about the time I caught you and Burbage practicing themes from Romeo and Juliet?
We were working out some dialogue problems.
At least the dress fit him.
So you were a big success on the London stage?
Actually, no. Oh, I could make ends meet as a stage manager. I even scraped up enough to invest in the company. But I could see it was going nowhere.
So you came back to Stratford-on-Avon?
Oh, yes. I got into real estate. Was making a few bob when one of my old contacts showed up. Richard de Vere. Earl of Oxford, he was.
Willie?
Hello, your lordship. How's tricks at court?
Dreadful. Oh, Burleigh, my guardian, is Prime Minister now, but it hasn't cut into trying to run my life, not one little bit.
Dreadful sorry to hear that. What can I do for you?
Funny you should ask. Willie, I've written a play.
Oh? How nice.
Yes, and it's good too, but there's the rib.
Rub. There's the rub.
Ah, quite. You see, I can't have it produced not under my own name. That would be all very fine if I was some nobody, dirt, common, low-life theatrical type. Oh, sorry.
Right.
But it wouldn't do to have a peer write a play. I mean, the court would have started examining it for all sorts of political significance and things. Not that my play has any such.
I'm sure.
But I couldn't produce this play even if it were Zayakosha, since it contains the most delicious parody of Old Belay.
Oh, it does?
Yes! I call the character Polonius, but you'd recognize him in a minute, and so would he, if he knew I'd written it.
I think I see where this is going. You'll have to excuse me. I have to show a property to a nice young couple.
But it occurred to me that if there were a play written by some common as mud slime ball theatrical toad, oh, sorry,
Quite.
then he'd never guess, and instantly I thought of you.
Oh, gee, thanks.
So, how about it?
Your earlness. Much as I'd like to help.
There's money in it for you.
How much? Ooh, that much. Well, you're on. A new play by William Shakespeare. What's the title?
Hamnet. A tragedy.
Hamnet. Hamnet.
And I'll expect you to do some editing and polishing for the money, too.
I think I'd better. Oh, yes, like here. 2,000 soldiers enter stage left. As a practical matter, I think we'll need to cut that down.
No, the full artistic effect.
Well, let's see. 2,000 extras at 2 bob a day over an expected run of...
I get your point. Well, toodaloo.
Polishing and editing. Mary Magdalene's bunions. Listen to this. Maybe I should just kill myself. I think about it a lot, you know. Like, is it a macho thing to do? I could write better dialogue off the top of my head.
That sounds somehow familiar in a twisted, deformed way.
Better change it to something like, to be or not to be. That is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Oh, yes, now I was on a roll. This wouldn't be so tough.
But that's Hamlet's great soliloquy. Didn't writing it touch your soul in any way?
At first, I was terrified.
At last, some spark of
Terrified that De Vere would take offence at my little changes. But he was delighted. And then I realised De Vere couldn't remember what he'd written anyway. He'd cribbed the plot from a Danish travel guide. In fact, I still have it.
Let me see that.
Huh?
Ye peerless guide to hot Swedish babes and bloody bodkins of the Danemark.
That's it. See, De Vere brought me several more of his little masterpieces, mostly lifted from history books. Julius Caesar, Macbeth. Othello was spun out of some gossip he'd heard about the Italians. They were all awful, of course.
Then De Vere was Shakespeare, sort of.
Only sort of. De Vere kicked off in 1604.
That should have been the end of the sacrilege.
Oh, no. By then he'd introduced me to all of his upper-class would-be playwright buddies. None of them could write worth a warm spit, of course. But they'd do the research and plotting for me, and I'd polish and edit their little messes till they were decent. Then they'd put up the money to produce the scripts and buy most of the opening night tickets, too. How could it lose?
Oh, God. Oh, God.
For the first decade of the 17th century, I was the central clearinghouse for the sorry efforts of most of the aristocratic play cobblers of England. I was getting the credit, the royalties, and patronage from the twits to boot. Then I got word that the Queen wanted to pay a call on me. Oh, how may I be of service, Your Majesty?
Your literary prowess has brought signal honour to our realm, Master Shakespeare.
God save Your Majesty.
I would ask something of you, Master Playwright.
Only command your servant, Majesty.
Would you love to over a poem of mine which I call The Fairy Queen?
Much as I would like to publish Your Majesty's work as my own, I will have to refer you to a gentleman to whom I have begun referring all my epic poetry work.
That will be most satisfactory. Rise, Master Shakespeare, and know that you have the gratitude of your queen.
Not Spencer, too.
Oh, yes, Spencer too. God, it was awful. Half the characters stolen from Orlando Furioso, and an exercise in egomania to boot. Just like her old man, that Biddy was.
The Queen, your co-conspirator. Whatever made you quit?
Well, I'd built up a tidy little nest egg so I could quit the ghost writing and agenting business and get back to my first love.
I thought you and she didn't get along.
No, real estate.
Oh, why, you money-grubbing little...
Oh, come on, Queenie. What did Kipling do after he'd made his pile? Bought as much of Massachusetts as he could afford. And what's J.K. Rowling been doing since she killed off Voldemort? Buying up half of Scotland, that's what. Give me a bleeding break. I was just ahead of my time.
And then?
Well, I died, didn't I? Happens to the best of us. I tell you, it's peaceful. A lot quieter than being the front man for half of the bad scribblers in England. Well, except when...
Oh, really?
Yes? Oh, yes, oh, Lord.
I had a marvellous idea, Willie. Sort of a poem thingy about, the other place. Great special effects.
No, just the man for it. Name of Dante. Dante Alighieri. You can call him Danny, I'm sure he won't mind. Italian. Has just the right touch for that sort of thing. I've got to go, sweetie. Oh, hey, nice bodkin. I'd love to see it bare.
How dare you lay your hand on my...
Oh, I've got to go. Exit stage right.